अस्सलाम वालेकुम जी डियर स्टूडेंट्स। आज का हमारा टॉपिक है साइको लिंग्विस्टिक्स। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, व्हाट इज साइको लिंग्विस्टिक्स? वी वुड डिस्कस साइको लिंग्विस्टिक्स अंडर these heading: introduction, acquisition, production, and comprehension. So first of all, we talk about introduction. Before the term psycholinguistics, the term neurolinguistics was used for psycholinguistics. In the 18th century, neurolinguistics was the branch of linguistics which studied the relationship between language and human brain. Basically, this branch of linguistics studied the neural mechanism in the human brain that was working to understand language, to acquire language, and to produce language. So, neurolinguistics can be called another name of psycholinguistics, as it was an old term. So, psycholinguistics is the branch of study which combines the discipline of psychology and linguistics. Linguistics, you people already know, is the scientific study of language, and psychology is basically the study of human mind, the study of human brain. So, psycholinguistics tells the relationship between human mind and language. It examines, it studies, and it focuses the process that occur in the brain while producing and receiving human language, whether it is spoken or it is written. So, psycholinguistics is basically the branch of linguistics that deals or that studies linguistics with reference to human brain. Reference to human brain means that it studies the phenomena, it studies the working of human brain while it is perceiving and it is producing the language. These are the important aspects of psycholinguistics. First is, when was this term coined? As we are already saying that before this term, there was a term neurolinguistics used for the same process, the same study. Then later on, it was studied as a separate branch of study. Then we would see the role of Noam Chomsky in the development of psycholinguistics. There were also different people, other linguists, who worked on this field. What is the area of psycholinguistics? What are the different methodologies used in this technique, in this branch? What do you mean by language acquisition? What is language production? And what is language comprehension? First of all, this term was used by Jacob Robert. He was basically the founder of the term psycholinguistics. But this term became famous due to Nicholas Henry in 1946, as he used it again and again. So this term became famous and popular. Then you already know the name of Noam Chomsky. Chomsky was a linguist who said that the human beings have an innate ability to learn language, to acquire language. He said that There is a device in human brain that is called LAD. LAD stands for Language Acquisition Device. According to him, the human beings have an innate ability to acquire language, and they also know certain set of rules, and he called those rules as uh, universal grammar. So his theory certainly made a revolution in the field of psycholinguistics. The work on the psycholinguistics is not new. It started from Plato, but later on it became famous in 19th century. As we have already mentioned, that Jacob Robert was the first person who used this term, but there were other linguists who worked on psycholinguistics. Their names are Paul Broca, Charles Hockett, and William Levelet. There was an old theory relating psycholinguistics, and the old concept was that all the language exists in the hemisphere of human brain, and it exists in the right hemisphere. As you can see in the picture, that it exists in the right hemisphere. You can see it: logic, math, language, reading, writing, analysis. And in the other sphere, there was personality, creativity, intuition, music, art, special abilities. So this concept was already present in the mind of the people. The people already knew this concept. Then we are going to study different theories of psycholinguistics. And these theories are acquisition, which stands for first language acquisition. You can also use it in the second language acquisition, but it should be the second language learning, because there is a difference between acquisition and learning. Learning is basically a conscious effort. We would study it in detail ahead. And the second theory is about the production of human language. You people have already studied about the production of human speech, English speech sounds, as in the case of consonants as well as vowel sounds. And the third theory deals with the comprehension of language. Now we study these in detail. First language acquisition. First language acquisition means the learning of a native or first language. Whatever we learn, whatever we acquire when we are born. I am giving you an example. I was born in a Punjabi speaking family. So I acquired knowledge, I acquired my language, Punjabi language, for the first time as a first language. Same is the case with every person. If a person is born in an Urdu speaking family, he acquires Urdu as his first language. If he is born in the English speaking family or in the English family who speak English as their first language, the child learns English as his first language. Same is the case with the Turkish people or with the people speaking Persian. So the first language means the language that is acquired for the first time through the parents and the environment and the sibling. And this process is basically called developmental psycholinguistics. Developmental psycholinguistics. There are different theories about it, whether a person learns language, as Chomsky calls it, by nature, or it is the bringing up of the children that counts a lot in it, or there is the role of training or the role of instruction in the language of in the learning of first language. One thing is called a nature and the other thing is called nurture. Nature means that the nature has already put something in our mind and we can acquire our language very easily. And nurture stands for that we have to train others and we are trained by the others to acquire language. Let's study the nature versus nurture. Nature basically is the theory that Noam Chomsky believes. He believes that we have pre-wired structure in our brain which help us to have advanced knowledge about language known as atavism. As we already mentioned, he believes that the human beings have been provided with an LED. LAD. LAD stands for Language Acquisition Device. It means that device has already been put in our mind, in human brain, and the human beings can acquire language very easily. It is a natural process. But on the other hand, Michael Temeslo believes that children acquire language first and foremost by understanding how others use language. You can also see that his point is also very valid, because when a child starts speaking, he doesn't speak in the accurate way, but he makes many mistakes. If he has elder sisters and the child is a male child and the sisters speak Urdu and they say, मैं जाती हूँ, मैं खाती हूँ, मैं पीती हूँ, मैं जाऊंगी, मैं जा रही हूँ, you would see that the male child would also speak the language in the same way. He would say, मैं जाती हूँ, in place of saying, मैं जाता हूँ. So, Michael Tomasello says that children acquire language due to their environment and due to the role of their parents as they observe others. Chomsky also believes that we are born with switches in our brains. It means we can switch from one language to another language. It means in an English structure, you can see there is a structure of subject, verb, object. But in Turkish language or other languages, the structure is subject, object, verb, as is in the case with Urdu. Subject, object, verb. So according to Chomsky, there are switches in our brain and we can easily switch from one language to another language. But B.F. Skinner, who was basically the founder of the theory Behaviorism, he says that children acquire knowledge, acquire their first language from their environment, from their parents, and from their siblings. They observe all these things and ultimately they are able to acquire language in the same way as their parents do or as their environments allow them. So there are two basic notions in first language acquisition. First is overgeneralization and the second is undergeneralization. Overgeneralization. Overgeneralization means the extension of a rule beyond to its proper limits. The extension of a rule beyond to its limits. For example, in the beginning, I have also observed this from my children, from my daughters as well as my son, that they call all the objects that had four wheels cars, whether it was a truck, whether it was a bus, whether it was a rickshaw, whether it was a larger bus, whether it was a highest minibus. They had the concept that the bus that had four wheels must be called a car, and they call every bus or every four-wheeler a car. The same was the case with the rounder objects. If I told them that this is a sun and it is a round, it has a round shape, they thought that every object that has a round shape should be called a sun, whether it is in the day or in the night. Later on, they have to be told that in the day it is called sun and in the night it is called moon, and the both might have the same round shapes. So the children in the beginning definitely overgeneralize the language, and not only the words but also the other things, the other sentences. Undergeneralization means uh, the limitation of a rule, the limitation of a rule to its proper limits. It means you have decreased the size of, decreased the limits of a rule. For example, when a child says shoes, he is saying the shoes of his mother. He doesn't know that other shoes of his father, of his brother, of his sister are also called shoes. So these are basically the two notions, two ideas that are governed and that are used and that are implied in the first language acquisition. There are different reasons for overgeneralization as well as undergeneralization. First is, children's conceptual categories differ from adults. No doubt, their concepts are sometimes limited. And in the beginning, no doubt, their concepts are limited. They are not exposed to the outer world in the same way as the elders are. So they don't have the same concepts of the things as the elders are. So they overgeneralize, or sometimes they undergeneralize the rules or the things. And at some occasions, they might know that this is not a dog. But the problem is that they do not know the name of the other thing. They may have been in the thinking process that this doesn't look like a dog. This should be a cow, or this is another animal. It can be a buffalo. It can be any other, it can be a horse. It can be a donkey. But they do not know the name of donkey, horse, cow, and buffalo. That's why they make the mistake of saying a cow, a dog, or a buffalo, a dog. And sometimes the children misuse the things, and this also can be called that they want to create humor. I have observed through my children, especially, that children are very naughty and they like humor and they like mischiefs, and they make many mischiefs to create humor and to enjoy not only themselves but also their parents and brothers and sisters. Now, dear student, from first language acquisition, we turn to second language acquisition. There are also different stages of first language acquisition. That stages are called, first stage is called babbling. Babbling stage. When a child starts baba, ba, e, baba. This kind of babbling can be heard from the child. Later on, he starts uttering a word, and that first word mostly you can hear would be baba. First was ba, a, e, u, a. That was babbling stage. And the second is when he utters a word, baba. And most of the time, the mother or the mothers think that this child utters the word baba and he should utter the word mama, or he should utter the word ammi, or he should utter the word Allah. But the basic problem is that the child has been using this sound ba throughout this period of almost 6 months. And now he has just used the same sound twice and he has created a word, baba. And the third stage comes when he makes an utterance. There would be 2 or 3 words. It is called an utterance. He makes an utterance. And on the latter stage, he starts speaking the whole sentence at the age of 1.5 years, and some children starts using the sentences at the age of 2 years. As we say, I'm going, I'm eating. My daughter says she is just at the age of, she is nearing the age of 2, and she says, मैं खा रही हूँ, मैं बैठी हूँ, मैं खाती हूँ, मैं हंसती हूँ. So at the age of almost 2 years, the children start speaking or start using sentences. Now, these were the different stages for the first language acquisition. Nowadays, student, we turn to the second language acquisition. You can call it second language acquisition, but basically it should be called second language learning. Because there is a difference between acquisition and learning. Learning is a conscious effort, while acquisition is natural. You are learning while listening to others. In the atmosphere, as we have already talked about, that a child who has been born into an English family starts speaking English, and a child who is born into an Arab family starts speaking Arabic. Same is the case with the Pakistani Urdu speakers. But to learn second language, you have to make certain effort. And you have to learn certain things. You have to practice. You have to understand, and then you have to practice. So the process of second language acquisition is the process by which people learn a second language when you already know the first language. And the first language is called native language, and the second language can be called a foreign language or a non-native language. Now, there are also different theories in second language learning. The first is universal grammar. I already mentioned it while talking about Noam Chomsky. Chomsky says that there are a certain set of principles in a human brain. There is a complete grammar in human brain that is gifted to him by nature. He calls it universal grammar. We have already studied and discussed it in the morphology. Universal grammar. He has also given different rules in the universal grammar. Chomsky described this theory as knowledge that people are born with. He has his own concept. Next is monitor theory. Monitor theory means that the learners have to acquire or learn the second language through proper attention and proper focus. They have been given instructions and they follow those instructions, and they follow it, they practice it, and in this way they learn the rules. This theory is called monitor theory. Third theory is behaviorism. As we already mentioned in the first language acquisition, that this was the theory by B.F. Skinner. And Skinner was of the view in the first language acquisition that language can be acquired by parents and siblings. But in the second language acquisition, he says that second language can only be acquired by practice, imitation, reinforcement, and habit formation. That the child learns by imitating the native speaker. And then he practices again and again. He may make mistakes, but with the passage of time, he corrects himself. Then there is a process of reinforcement. Reinforcement can be positive as well as negative. Positive reinforcement can certainly help the learners in a better way. As we people know that we can think that we would get good marks, we would get good grades, we can get first position, we can get some reward. So this is called reinforcement in a positive way. In a negative way, when we are afraid that the teacher would punish us, or we would be failed, or we would get a punishment, or the parents would rebuke us. These things are basically called reinforcement. And then there is a habit formation. In the beginning of something, you have to learn everything. You have to memorize a language. But with the passage of time, it becomes a habit. And your vocal cords, your mind, everything starts working together. The more you use it, the more it becomes easier. The more you use it, the easier it becomes. And the fourth theory is cognitive psychology. Cognitive, as you can see, related to mind, related to brain. It emphasizes that the learners have to pay too much focus and attention and effort. Some theories suggested that the language was first acquired through intentional learning of what is called declarative knowledge. Intentional learning. That is called declarative knowledge. And the declarative knowledge can become procedural knowledge. With the passage of time, it can become procedural knowledge. And the fifth and the last theory is integrationist perspective. Integrationist perspective. This theory explains the ongoing use of language while you are communicating. And in the communicative process, certainly the language is used for communicative purpose. It studies the reaction and the postures and the gestures used by the learners. This was our topic related to introduction of psycholinguistics, first language acquisition, and the second language learning. Next, we would discuss the production and the comprehension of language in our next lecture. I hope you people would have understood it in a very easy way. Let's hope for the best.